What's up, YouTube? It's Joe Catchpolia sitting on the couch, making some money investing in fractional real estate online, as usual. Today, we've got Mogul's newest pad split that they've listed. It's the Drebin or the Drebin. I have no idea what this is in reference to. They always have, it's the name of someone from a show or they have all different reasons. I don't know what this name is. I don't even know how to pronounce it, so sorry about that. But other than that, it's exactly what we've come to expect from Mogul. It's a pad split with very solid numbers, 9 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, about 2,400 square feet. We're going to dig into that a little bit. Um, I don't know if I mentioned this on the last one, but I think it was different. So a lot of these have been 70% LTV. This one's 75. I think the last one was too, and I failed to mention that difference. But they're doing the same thing that they regularly do. They're buying something with in-place income. They're underwriting a lower income than what's actually been in place for the last year. I think it's very prudent to do that. When you have a transition, you could have some issues, or you could just have, a slightly down year. But despite that, it still is going to have a 12% yield in year one. Um, so looks really solid from that perspective. I want to jump into first the Richmond market because we haven't looked at Richmond anymore or at all yet. It's a market that 20 plus years ago was shrinking, 20, 30, 40 years ago, I guess. It's interesting because I lived in the area, not too close, but in the area right around this time frame. So this is the sense I have of it, right? That it's sort of a shrinking market. But since 2000, you've had a lot of growth, right? 3.2%, not huge, but then 11%, and then just 3% in the last 4 years. Um, so I like the looks of that. This is not a huge market, but over 200,000 people. Also looked at the metro area, which then you get over 1 million people, and we've had similar growth, right? And actually, so the city had been shrinking, but the metro area has been growing very steadily. Obviously, there's a lot of other things you could look at about this market that I think would be worth jumping into. Employment base. One of the things that I couldn't find is very, very much info about their public transportation. I know for the pad splits that's been important. I couldn't find the nearest bus stop for this current one, and I don't know if my map wasn't loading right, because usually you can just see them right on Google Maps, or if there just aren't very many in the area, or what. That'd be something to dig into a little bit more. Obviously, if it's an area that doesn't have that, then I wouldn't expect to see it. But I was surprised to not see it at all for especially a 9 bedroom home, where it looked like it'd be really hard to park 9 cars there. But so let me jump into a couple other things about the market. This is just Chesterfield County, looking at the National Risk Index. And if you remember, I always like to look at the expected annual loss because I think adding these two factors in really doesn't help when you're thinking about like, okay, how likely is my property to be damaged? And so, relatively moderate is the risk here. But then when we actually look at like what the risks are, it's pretty low on the index for just about everything. Hurricane's the highest number, and I mean, I'm sure they get hit with some, but it's not like living in the Gulf Coast or in Florida or something. So, I don't know. I thought that looked pretty good, but of course, if this is something that you're interested in digging into more, if I'm going to put a whole bunch of money in this market, I'm obviously doing a lot more research into it than just these highlights. But these are the things I like to look at first, right? And I think, what's the population doing? Oh, okay, we've got great growth there. This is what are some of our risks? I looked into the flood map. Looks like we are well outside of the closest flood zone. Um, Although, close enough that it makes me think there's probably no building going on behind us, which is kind of nice. I mean, I think it's possible, but it looks like probably not ever. And so that's always something that, of course, I've seen people buy homes expecting this and then have have a flood zone get diverted and somebody built there. So I mean, it's not guaranteed, but one of the things that people like when they have a green space behind them, knowing that that's going to stay that way, and when you have a flood zone so close, it's at least a little bit of protection from building behind you, right? I don't think it really matters at all for the pad split business model, but for future resale, having a nice wooded space behind you versus somebody coming in and building something. It would make a difference. So when I see that, I actually don't mind seeing that at all, especially when it's not right on, right on the home. It's far enough back that I feel good about it. Um, oh, this is the map. Let me just actually. The next thing I wanted to look at the spot crime. This was kind of interesting. You did have a shooting, but it's on the other side of the highway. There wasn't anything. You have these others, which are always like, okay, it was a hit and run. And then what was this other one? Or was this the same one? Yeah, just police call for service. Like, so we have no idea what that is. But so a couple of things. This was a whole week of crimes. So sometimes, you get this much in a day, sometimes, but you can see it's pretty zoomed out, right? Like if I actually zoom into the neighborhood, and this is kind of what I expected in this area, you don't really see anything close by other than that hit and run and then whatever this random thing was. Um, so I don't know, one of the better crime maps that we've seen for our pad split style properties, some of them have been in areas that uh, had significantly worse ones than this. So I liked that. Let's see, what is next? Okay, yeah, I don't know what happened here. Let's try to search this again because it seems like we got moved. All right, there we go. Um, yeah, if you look at it, it is where this is one of the things I was a little bit concerned about. We talk about this all the time is the parking situation. So I couldn't find a bus stop nearby. Maybe somebody else watching, if you find one, drop a comment in the video or jump in the Discord and mention it in there. Which reminds me, please like and subscribe. If you haven't already, in the description of this video, there's an invite to our Discord. You're welcome to jump in there and join any of the conversations about due diligence on this property or any of the other platforms that we're talking about in there, which, I do have in the description of this video. There are links to all the sites where I currently invest in fractional real estate online. Feel free to use any of those links, but if you do your own due diligence on those companies and any of the properties. Just because I'm buying one of these or decide not to, doesn't mean it's the right answer for you. So yeah, and we already have had some discussion about this particular property in the Discord, so feel free to jump in there and join that. But yeah, if anybody's noticed a close bus stop, I maybe I just missed it, but I did quite a bit of dragging the map around. I didn't see any. So parking is going to be real important. If we've got 9 bedrooms, it seems like this is going to be a little bit tough. I mean, you have plenty of room, so like maybe you just get people parking on the grass, or maybe in the future, if it does become an issue, you can just put some crushed rock. I've seen them do that a lot in pad splits. But whenever I've had a property in a cul-de-sac, those have been the ones where I've run into parking issues and issues of neighbors complaining more than anywhere else. So I don't love being on a cul-de-sac for that reason. But like I said, I mean, there is a lot of land in the front yard. The house is pretty far back. So you could create more parking if it does become a problem. Um, it doesn't look like it from this picture that it's too bad, but I mean, you've got somebody parked like this, and then but these two people I think are for this home. So I don't know. Parking is always one of the things I'm a little bit worried about with pad splits when you're putting 9 adults in a single family home. A lot of places are not set up for that. Sorry about that. Just the phone ringing. Um, and then let's see. I did want to just drag it a little bit and see if maybe it just wasn't loading earlier to see any bus stops. Uh, well, and I guess what I can do is just if you do directions and then you use this little guy, and then we'll just pick some place. Let's just go to Washington, D.C. Yeah, look, it should show us. Oh, okay, yeah, that was stupid, right? But how long does it take us to get to the first bus stop? Yeah, this is a dumb idea. Uh, okay, so it looks like they're having us drive first. Are they having us drive first? No, I don't know. Okay, that didn't work out at all. I should have picked a much closer place. Let's just say Rich. Let's do that. That'll get us a much smaller area. Um, is this it? Is this where we're starting? This looks like where we're starting. So let's zoom down in here. I think that's telling us we've got to walk really far to get to that bus stop. Yeah, this section looks like a walking section. That's a 45-minute walk. So yeah, interesting. We don't have a close bus stop as far as I can tell. Um, so parking there is going to be important. Let's see. Again, if anybody's got better info on this, this is not always perfect. This is how I like to look, right? I like to do this little thing. I should have picked a closer place at first, so sorry about being an idiot there. All right. And then the other thing about the market, oh yeah, is I just looked at the Zillow home price trends. Um, we've seen this shape quite a bit. I thought it's nice to see we've got a little uptick here at the end. It's gone. Oh well, that's funny. It says plus 0%. I could have sworn. Oh no, no, okay, yeah, plus 0%, but it says up. I always think that's weird, right? But it does estimate that we're going to have an upward trend over the next year. You can see like this little tiny move. So I guess I understand that's why they think that. Okay. So a little bit about that. So anyway, the market, I mean, it's a market I'd like to be in, right? It's like I said, it's growing. It's I think quite a bit different from the Atlanta or the Houston market or Austin or the Arizona. We're getting some diversification by picking up this market. According to what Mogul said, this is one of Padsplit's most mature markets. I didn't know that. I knew they were real big in Atlanta, and I had some sense of when they started in Houston. Had no idea that they've been there in a while. I think that's always good because if they've been operating for a long time, the longer their history, I think the less likely they're going to have a problem with the city. Um, uh, which reminds me, so one issue that came up and Ike pointed out in the Discord is, this property has a HOA, right? So okay, maybe they're not going to have problems with the city, but are they going to have problems with the HOA? And you can see, I mean, it's a very small HOA fee, $15 monthly. So it's not like that's impacting us that much. And a lot of times when you have the smaller HOA fees, it's indicative of a HOA that's like not really doing a whole lot. And so maybe we don't have to worry about them, creating some rules and stopping us from having a pad split. In general, I know Padsplit's very careful about the HOAs that they enter too. So I don't know if maybe they've already interacted with this one some. That'd be something I'd be interested to know. uh, Ike even found their Facebook page and shared that with us in the Discord. I thought that was nice. But why am I talking about this so much? So HOAs can create rules that would make it difficult to run a pad split. Now, maybe in the case that they do that, pad split takes them to court. Because we've talked about some other times that they have aggressively protected their model. I'm not sure if they would find it worthwhile to do with an HOA versus a city, because this is just a very small area. It's kind of easier to just avoid. I know when they were coming to San Antonio, they initially had told me, "Hey, I just try to avoid HOAs altogether." Um, One of the things, so this is something. It's really not just a theoretical risk either. Even if currently they don't have a problem with it. So we have a couple of HOAs here in town that used to be fine with short-term rentals, and then they changed their rules and outlawed it, and actually took a couple of owners that I know to court over it. And so it is something that really can happen. You can have them change the rules, and even one of the things, even if you have it's a voluntary community association, like it's one that you don't even have to join, which is a thing in some places. It gives the community an easy way to get together and change things. And so a lot of subdivisions, even if you don't have to follow the HOA rules, a lot of times the subdivisions themselves have, and you have to look in the public records and find out if this is true, but have ways of creating new rules, basically new deed restrictions that apply to, or covenants or whichever one they are, but create new ways to restrict the use of properties. Um, I know a lot of times they have to have a very large percentage of the homeowners in the subdivision vote, but I've seen that happen a couple of times here in town, which has made me really hesitant to even, anytime there's some sort of neighborhood association, I'm worried about the long-term viability of any strategy that's not just a long-term rental. So that one worries me a little bit about for this one. Now, like I said, maybe Pad Split's already interacted with this HOA. Maybe they have something worked out because I know that they are, that's something that they are very cognizant of. I think it'd be useful to find that out, right? Because it has been operating under this model for a while. Um, or at least a year. I think that it said, let's see, did they say only a year? Past 12 months. So I don't know if it's been longer than that or not, but it's something that I'd really want to find out if I'm going to invest in this one. Um, because just because I have seen it, I've seen the backlash with short-term rentals, and normally, if we had an abundance of parking here, I'd be much less worried because like that's the biggest reason that neighbors are going to start to complain is if you're causing them some sort of problem, right? And if I live in this cul-de-sac and yeah, let's zoom in on this again, right? If I live on this cul-de-sac and I'm constantly, and there's constantly a bunch of cars parked around here, and I'm like just somebody who just likes to complain about things, that's going to be something that is, especially like if I can't, if people come to visit me and there's no place for them to park except for way down the road, like that's just going to be problematic, right? So if this had been a corner lot with a ton of parking, I'd be less worried that somebody in this particular neighborhood is going to complain. Although, if there's another one, and this is actually what happened to the people that I know with the Airbnb that got shut down, is they weren't really getting any complaints and they were good neighbors, but there was another Airbnb in the same subdivision that was just being run horribly. It was basically a party house. Um, and it led to, it was what started that action, but then once it got actually got pushed through and became a new rule in the subdivision, then it created a problem for everybody who was operating there. Anyway, that is it about that. So I think that's a serious risk. It's something that if I were going to invest in this one, I'd want to ask about. Let's see. As far as their valuation, I mean, it looked pretty like they have some of the best comps that I've seen them have, right? Like similar size. Um, let's see. Realtor put them at a little bit lower price, but Redfin was 15,000 or 10,000 over because I think they're buying it for 405 actually. Is that right? Oh, what are we freezing up here? Make sure we don't kill my thing again here. Yeah, 405. So 10,000 over for Redfin, but yeah, a little bit under for Realtor, and then Zillow. Yeah, they're paying a little bit over the Zestimate as well, but they're also getting $5,000 in closing credits. So it is it's really like you're paying 400,000 when you get those. Like I mean, it's a silly game we play as agents, right? But it puts more cash in your pocket when you pay a little bit higher and you get that closing credit. So this is one I feel pretty good about the value estimate. I almost always feel good about their yields that they're projecting because um, they just so far have never done me wrong. And again, I've only been investing with them since December. It is something you want to do your own due diligence, dig into these numbers. I've come to just trust them more and more. One of the things they're always doing this refinance, and I don't know, I just don't think they need it. So okay, 15.8 and 15.6, right? What happens if we get rid of the refinance? We get to 15.5 and 15.0. So it really doesn't make much of a difference at all, right, in our total returns. And it's because they're getting, so much of your return is coming from that yield. And, you're starting with a 12% year one yield. So, um, I understand they want to model it, but I just, I'm saying 12%. It looks like it's actually 11.84. I just got the 12 out of their other description. Um, but yeah, that just really numbers that I've come to expect from them. Obviously, 12% cash on cash year one or just under that. It's a fantastic yield. It's a year 2000 property, so you've got, it's in better shape than a lot of the older ones that we've seen. Um, and looking through, it looks like this is compared to some of them, it's a pretty sparse property. This is actually like more in line with how I normally picture the pad split business model. Some of the ones that were a little bit more, had a little bit more furnishings and whatnot is, not really what I expect. So anyway, um, I think that's all good. Let me see. I know there are a couple other things I wanted to talk about. Oh, we talked about get into so one. I could mention that, this it looks like the seller was this guy who, it appears that there's a court case that I think is for this person, um, that where he's, I don't know, he did defrauded like I don't even remember now, the payment protection, whatever loans that happened during COVID. So it seems like that's who the seller was. When he first mentioned it, it worried me a little bit because I never want to be buying from a known criminal. But that's actually, it looks like that's the seller that sold to the current owner that we're buying from. Makes me a little bit less worried. Except that if this is who did the renovation, maybe there's an issue. But it's been several years now, so that, and I know we get a property inspection, um, so I'm not terribly worried about that. But it is funny that that popped up in there and somebody had mentioned that. What did I want to point out here? Oh, the improvements. So if we look at this, you've got, it's really funny how these numbers don't really all add up to, or figuring out how they actually add up is tough, right? And I think that that's why each one of these. So let's see. This says it's a 2401 square foot. That's only 2 square feet off of what we said, right? And then we've got 2507 square foot, and then we have 2295. So we've got three different numbers there. Plus we have our 2399, but 2399 matches up just right with. Oh, where do we have this? If you click on residential, 2399 is this, 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, 0 square footage, and then it's not counting this daylight partial section. So this is just bonus section, right? And that is, when we look at the sketch, I believe is, oh, look at how tiny that sketch is. I think that's this area here. But I'm not, well, is that right? Oh no, that's the garage, obviously. Okay. This is the basement. Oh, maybe that's what they're saying, daylight with the D. Let's see. I thought I had that understood, but maybe not. Daylight partial. I think that that might be the basement. And so this is not included in that square footage that we're paying for, which I always like, right? I mean, this is how it would work in my market. The square footage is actually just like the finished square feet. Um, well, and above grade. And so, but that's how it's listed on all the properties. That's how it's valued. So that seemed pretty straightforward. So overall, oh, and then I checked the pad split page again. I appreciate you always posting this in there for me. It makes my job super easy when he's been getting to this due diligence faster than me, sticking it in the Discord, and so really starting some good conversations in there. Um, but yeah, so it does show, this home's fully booked, which, is another good sign, right? We had some where there were a number of listings, even though it was supposed to be full, which made me think there's probably some turnover. So overall, I like this one a lot. The HOA really worries me, and so, I don't know. I think I would ask some questions about that for me, just because, like, if you remember how I think about deals, like, there's no reason to just, they're putting out so many good deals. I find there no reason to just pass up one every now and then, right? I'm really investing in about two out of every three that they put out. Um, because I've just had so much problems with HOAs when I've used, for me here, it was short-term rentals. We actually did have some rent by the room, like student rentals that ran into some HOA issues as well. Forgot about that. That was quite a while back, and that's even more similar to this, right? So even if at the moment they're okay, because it takes is, a new vote, and sometimes it might be a large percentage, but it's just not that tough to get rules changed and to maybe limit what we can do. So really curious, where things stand with this one. If they told me, oh no, the HOA's already tried it, we took them to court and we won, well, okay, that changes my mind. And then this one seems like a really no-brainer to me. I think I would pick it up just based off that. I mean, I do worry a little bit about the parking. Um, it's been operating for a year though, so I'm so curious how that's working, right? Because it really doesn't seem like with the parking they have now that you can fit nine. I wonder if people are street parking here. like on the side of this road. I mean, this looks like somebody's street parking. So maybe they're parking along this road too. And then they're obviously pulling straight in here, so you could do like one or two. It's just hard to figure out what they're doing for transportation. If they're, if the nearest bus is 45 minutes away, I wonder if that's really, if that's true. Otherwise, I mean, I'm not really sure what's going on there. So those are the only couple of outstanding issues that I'd have with this. There's a lot to like about it, and so depending on if we get, I mean, the parking, there's not really an answer, right? Like it's like, okay, well, it's been operating. We have land that we could use, just put some crushed rock down. So I really don't see that as being a huge issue. Um, except that they're not already doing that. So I kind of just want to know, right? Sometimes when we do these, I'm just curious, right? Like how are they dealing with this so far? Do they have people that are like that live here and maybe work from home and then only occasionally go out and they use a Uber, or are people riding their bikes from, I mean, what are they actually doing here? Um, yeah, I mean that's just for me because I just want to know the answer to everything. Um, are there multiple people that are sharing a vehicle? I mean, that would seem really weird to me in this type of setup. But where the nearest bus stop does seem to be so far away, um, even here you don't see the actual bus stop there. That's interesting. I don't know why. Yeah, so if anybody's got better insight into the public transportation in this area, I'm super curious about that. And then too, yeah, if anybody has already asked about the HOA and you know the answer, feel free to put that in the Discord or in the comments to this video. Other than that, I mean, I really like the property itself looks nice. It's because it's one of the newest ones, right? I mean, it's funny. It's 25 years old. In Texas, this would be not a very new home, but in certain parts of the country, people would think of this as new. And like if you compare it to a lot of the properties that that I've bought on this platform, most of them are older than this. So anyway, that's all I've got to say about this one. Um, Please do tickle the like button if you haven't already. And also, I wanted to mention tomorrow, or not tomorrow, Thursday should be dividend day for Mogul. So I'll be doing the same thing I always do, is just going through my portfolio, let you know how my dividends are doing. So far, that's always been, good news. So hopefully that keeps up. Um, and now that's really it for today. Until next time, I'm going to just keep making mistakes so that you don't have to.